Ethan's workshop sat on the edge of the colony, surrounded by a landscape that seemed both beautiful and harsh. The red dust of the planet swirled around the metal buildings, and the twin suns cast long, flickering shadows across the ground. Ethan liked it that way. He had chosen this quiet, remote spot because it allowed him to work without distractions. His life was simple: wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. That was until the morning the aliens arrived. It started with a commotion outside the workshop. Strange, high-pitched cries pierced the air, followed by the hurried shuffling of small clawed feet. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag and stepped outside. A small group of aliens, no taller than a human child, was carrying someone between them. The child was limp, held carefully but with obvious urgency. "Wait," Ethan called, though he didn't know if they would understand him. The aliens froze for a moment, their large round eyes staring at him, filled with desperation. Then one of them pointed at the child and made a series of urgent noises. Ethan's heart sank when he saw the child's condition. Leary's limb was twisted at an unnatural angle, and the skin, or whatever covered her body, had bruised shades of blue and green. He didn't know the exact physiology of her species, but he knew enough from past encounters to understand that she needed help fast. He gestured for them to bring her inside. The aliens looked at each other, uncertain, then nodded. Carefully, they laid Leary on a padded table in the center of the workshop. Ethan immediately noticed how delicate her frame was, how fragile she seemed despite the alien resilience he had seen before. "Okay," he muttered to himself, rolling up his sleeves. "Let's see what we can do." The aliens didn't speak in words he could understand, but their eyes, wide and anxious, told him everything he needed to know. This was their child, and if he failed, they had no hope. Ethan studied the injury. The limb was crushed in multiple places, bone and muscle twisted in ways that seemed impossible to repair. On Earth, he might have sent the child to a hospital, but there was no hospital here. Only him. Only his skills and whatever materials he had in the workshop. He took a deep breath and began to plan. First, he would need to stabilize the limb. Using flexible alloy supports and advanced synthetic fibers, he carefully aligned the bones. His fingers moved with precision, gentle but firm as he worked. Every movement had to be perfect. There was no room for error. Hours passed. The suns shifted in the sky, sending long shadows across the room. Ethan worked tirelessly, adjusting, testing, and readjusting. The aliens stayed close by, watching intently, their eyes following every motion. Leary stirred occasionally, small sounds of discomfort escaping her throat. Ethan whispered soothingly, though he doubted she understood his words. The tone mattered more than the language. By midday, the basic structure of the new limb was ready. But it was far from finished. Ethan needed it to move naturally, to respond to her muscles and nerves, or whatever served the same purpose in her species. He connected small sensors and motors, carefully calibrating each one. He marveled at the complexity of her anatomy. Humans had nothing like this. The integration of organic and mechanical elements was delicate work, almost like playing an intricate musical instrument. The aliens watched, leaning closer, their expressions shifting from worry to curiosity. They seemed amazed by how Ethan could turn scraps of metal, wires, and synthetic materials into something that might actually function as a limb. Finally, he was ready for the test. He gently encouraged Leary to try moving her new limb. At first she hesitated, fear and uncertainty showing in her wide eyes. Then slowly, almost tentatively, she lifted it. A small smile spread across her face as she realized she could move it. She tried a few more movements, each one smoother than the last. The aliens gasped and clapped their tiny hands. Ethan felt a quiet satisfaction, though he kept his tone calm. "You're doing great," he said, smiling. For the first time that day, Leary laughed. It was a small sound, but it filled the room with warmth. The aliens were overjoyed, their relief almost tangible. They surrounded Ethan, chattering excitedly in their language, pointing at the limb and at him as if to say, "This is a miracle." Ethan didn't have time to celebrate. As the suns began to dip closer to the horizon, casting a golden glow across the workshop, a sudden hum filled the air. He looked up, frowning. It was not the familiar buzz of colony machinery. This was different, deeper, heavier, and filled with authority. A craft descended from the sky, sleek and shimmering with colors that seemed impossible. The aliens froze, staring up at it in awe. Ethan stepped back instinctively, shielding his eyes from the reflective light. The craft landed softly, almost silently, on the red dust outside the workshop. A ramp extended, and out stepped a figure that made Ethan's breath catch. She was taller than any of the villagers, her presence commanding. Her armor glinted in the last light of the suns, and her face, though alien, was noble and composed. Queen Solara had arrived. The villagers bowed immediately, heads to the ground, chattering softly in their language. Leary looked up wide-eyed and reached toward the queen. Ethan watched, stunned. He had heard rumors of Queen Solara, but he had never seen her in person. Her reputation as a wise and fair ruler was known across this system, but seeing her now, he understood why. She carried authority effortlessly, yet there was warmth in her gaze. Solara's eyes found Ethan, and she approached him. There was no fear in her look, only curiosity and something deeper, respect. She paused before him, speaking through a translator device. The words sounded strange in his ears, but the meaning was clear. "You have done what my people thought impossible," she said. "You have saved a life, not with brute strength, not with weapons, but with skill, patience, and care. You honor the human race by your actions today." Ethan blinked, unsure how to respond. He had only done his job. It was nothing," he said humbly. "I just fixed what was broken." Solara smiled faintly. "Nothing? You have restored hope to my people. That is no small matter." She looked past him at Leary, moving freely, testing her new limb, laughing and climbing. "This child's life is yours now as much as hers," the villagers whispered among themselves, clearly astonished. Ethan felt a weight settle on his shoulders. He had helped the child, yes, but he had also drawn the attention of one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Solara continued, her voice firm yet inviting. "I came to see the one who could do what none of my scientists could. Your talents are rare, human. I would ask you to come with me to see what else can be accomplished together." Ethan's mind raced. Leave the colony, leave his quiet life, and step aboard her ship. He barely knew this civilization, barely understood their technology, and yet he felt a strange pull. Something about this moment, about the Queen's trust, made him realize that his work could mean more than fixing broken limbs. He could help an entire people. He looked at Leary, who now ran around with her friends completely unharmed. He looked at the villagers, their gratitude unspoken but deeply felt. And finally, he looked at Queen Solara, waiting patiently, expectantly. Ethan swallowed. I will come," he said. The words felt heavier than he expected, full of responsibility and uncertainty. But underneath it all there was excitement, a spark of adventure he had not felt in years. Solara nodded, her eyes shining faintly in the evening light. "Then we begin," she said. And with that she motioned toward her craft. The villagers watched, silent now, knowing that this human, this man who had crafted a limb for a single child, was about to step into a story far larger than any of them could imagine. Ethan followed her out of the workshop, feeling the red dust crunch under his boots. He looked back once at the simple building he had called home, then turned forward. Beyond the horizon lay the unknown, vast and mysterious, and for the first time, Ethan felt ready to meet it, as the craft lifted into the sky, carrying him and Queen Solara above the twin suns and the red plains. Ethan realized something profound. A single act of care, taking the time to save a life, had set him on a path that would change not only his own fate, but perhaps the future of an entire civilization. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The workshop, the village, the small joys of fixing things and seeing them work again, all of that had led to this moment. Ethan felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration, but above all a sense of purpose. He was no longer just a human engineer. Today he had become something more. Today he had become a bridge between worlds. The suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in colors he had never seen, and Ethan knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The craft glided smoothly through the atmosphere, leaving a trail of shimmering light across the sky. Inside, Ethan found himself in a world unlike anything he had ever seen. The interior was vast, with ceilings that seemed to stretch forever, walls that shimmered with soft colors, and devices that floated and moved on their own. Holographic displays flickered with symbols he didn't understand, yet he could feel the power behind them. Queen Solara walked beside him, her presence calm but commanding. She didn't speak at first, letting Ethan absorb the scene. Eventually she said, "This is the heart of my kingdom. Here we design, create, and care for all of my people." Ethan nodded, trying to keep his awe in check. It's incredible, he said. I've never seen anything like it. Solara smiled faintly. You will need to learn quickly. Your skills are rare. I have watched your work, and I know that your human approach, the way you combine logic with intuition, cannot be replicated by my engineers. They are brilliant, but they lack the creative spark you possess. Ethan felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. He had spent his life fixing machines, helping people, and now he was being asked to contribute on a scale he had never imagined. Their first stop was a lab filled with alien engineers, some the size of humans, others much larger, all working with tools and materials that seemed to defy the laws of physics. They paused when Solara entered, bowing slightly in respect. She gestured toward Ethan. This human has saved one of my people, she said, and I ask that you show him our ways, so he can help us save many more. Ethan looked around, feeling both overwhelmed and excited. Machines floated in midair. Mechanical limbs and devices hovered as if alive, and holograms showed complex anatomical systems he could barely understand. He realized that while he had worked with advanced prosthetics, nothing here compared to this. Over the next few hours, Ethan began collaborating with the alien engineers. He showed them how to integrate human problem-solving with alien technology. He suggested ideas, small adjustments, and ways to improve efficiency. Slowly, they began to adapt, impressed by the simplicity and elegance of his solutions. Solara observed quietly, occasionally offering guidance, but mostly letting Ethan lead. It was unusual for a queen to allow a human so much freedom, but she recognized that his perspective was unique. During a break, Ethan wandered through the ship, observing the care they gave to their people. Children were learning with advanced simulations, workers were repairing machinery with perfect precision, and injured citizens were receiving treatment that combined technology and careful attention. He realized that this civilization, though alien, shared something familiar with humanity: the desire to protect, nurture, and improve lives. Then Solara spoke again, her voice gentle but firm. Ethan, your work with Leary was only the beginning. Many of my people are injured or disabled or limited by circumstances beyond their control. I want you to help them. Ethan hesitated. I don't know if I can do that for all of your people. Solara placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch firm but reassuring. You do not need to do it alone. I will provide resources, support, and guidance. But your ideas, your ingenuity will lead the way. Will you accept this responsibility? Ethan took a deep breath. He looked back at the memory of Leary, her small face lighting up when she first moved her new limb. He thought of the villagers, their trust and gratitude, and something inside him shifted. He nodded. Yes, I will help. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Ethan worked tirelessly, designing new prosthetics, tools, and devices for the aliens. Some were straightforward, replacing missing limbs or damaged body parts. Others were more complex, helping the injured regain mobility or adapt to their environment. Every success brought him joy, but also a deeper understanding of the responsibility he now carried. Leary often visited, her laughter filling the halls as she tested new devices or showed Ethan how well she could move. The villagers sometimes accompanied her, bringing other children or adults in need. Each time, Ethan felt a quiet pride, knowing that his work was making a real difference. One day, an emergency alarm sounded. A nearby village on the outskirts of Solara's kingdom was experiencing a massive environmental hazard, a sudden landslide threatening the lives of hundreds. Solara turned to Ethan, her expression serious. This is your chance, she said. Can you help them? Ethan's heart raced. I'll do my best, he replied. He immediately began coordinating with the engineers, designing rapid deployment support devices that could stabilize structures and aid the injured. Using both human ingenuity and alien technology, he created lightweight but strong braces, transport pods, and emergency tools. The team raced to the village. Ethan stayed focused, directing the effort with calm precision. The humans and aliens worked side by side, lifting debris, stabilizing buildings, and assisting the injured. Ethan noticed how the villagers trusted him, following his instructions even when the danger was great. He realized that his small actions had grown into something much larger, a bridge between species, a symbol of hope. Hours passed, but finally the danger passed. The village was safe, and the injured had received treatment thanks to the combined effort. The villagers cheered, their voices echoing through the canyon. Ethan felt a surge of emotion. He had never imagined that his work could have such an impact. Solara approached him, her expression a mix of pride and gratitude. "You have done what I could not have done alone. Today you saved lives not just with technology, but with courage and heart. You are now more than a human engineer. You are a protector of my people." Ethan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had doubted himself, questioned whether he could make a difference, and yet here he was, witnessing the tangible results of his efforts. Over the following weeks, Ethan continued his work, improving the lives of countless aliens. He designed adaptive learning devices for children, mobility aids for the elderly, and even emergency response systems for environmental hazards. Everywhere he went, people looked to him with trust and hope. Leary often stayed close to him, showing him new ways to use his creations. She was more than a symbol of success. She had become a reminder of why he had chosen this path. The villagers, too, treated him with respect, calling him by a name in their language that meant friend or helper. Through it all, Ethan developed a deep respect for Queen Solara. He saw how she governed, not through fear, but through care, wisdom, and understanding. She encouraged him, trusted him, and recognized the value of his human perspective. In turn, he learned from her, understanding the delicate balance of leadership, responsibility, and compassion. One evening, after a long day of work, Ethan stood on the deck of the flagship, looking out at the stars. He thought of the quiet workshop he had left behind, the red dust and twin suns, and he realized that his life had changed forever. A single act of kindness, crafting a limb for a child, had led him here into a world of possibility he had never imagined. Solara joined him, standing silently for a moment as they watched the stars together. "You have done well," she said softly. "Not because of skill alone, but because of heart. That is something my people and even my engineers cannot teach." Ethan smiled, feeling a deep sense of purpose. "I only did what anyone would do," he said humbly. "No," Solara replied, her eyes steady. "Humans are remarkable. You see solutions, not limitations. You act even when others hesitate. That is why you are here. That is why you are needed." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest, a quiet satisfaction that went beyond pride. He was more than a visitor, more than a helper. He was part of something larger. He was a bridge between species, a symbol of what humans could bring to the galaxy: creativity, courage, and compassion. As the flagship sailed through the stars, Ethan knew that his journey had only just begun. There would be more challenges, more lives to touch, and more opportunities to prove what humanity could offer. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of peace, watching the alien world stretch out before him. Leary ran past, laughing, testing a new device he had created. Villagers moved in organized groups, working with the engineers. The crew of the ship adjusted systems and tested innovations, all under Ethan's guidance. And Queen Solara, silent but proud, observed it all. Knowing that a single human had changed her people's fate forever, Ethan realized that he had learned something vital. Greatness was not measured by power or weapons, but by the ability to create, to help, and to inspire. His simple act of crafting a limb had led to a ripple that touched an entire civilization. And as he looked at the stars stretching endlessly before him, he knew that humanity had a place here, not as conquerors, but as allies, protectors, and creators. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt truly at home, not in a quiet workshop on a remote planet, but among the stars, among a people who had once been strangers, now friends, and a queen who had trusted him with more than he had ever imagined. And he knew that whatever came next, he would face it with the same hands that had crafted hope for one child, ready to craft hope for an entire world.